Holy cow. This is going to be a 50-yard field goal attempt with 5 seconds left in the game to win it. The Pirates are down 14-12. Cub Patton, who had one blocked earlier, from 50 yards out. The holder is right at the 40-yard line. This is going to be, in all likelihood, the last play of the game. The 50-yard kick is up, and it is up! The Pirates win the game! Oh, my Lord! And Cub Patton is going backwards. The Pirates have won 15-14 on a 50-yard field goal, the last play of the game. This is unbelievable.
Welcome to another edition of Pirate Talk. This is a kind of a fun one. I've got the voice of the Lubbock-Cooper Pirates, Tommy Wood, with me, and just my goal here was to. Tommy's been calling Cooper games. We're going to get into that for many years now. I wanted to kind of let people know who they're listening to every Friday night. Actually, maybe going to twist his arm and do a little basketball this year too with me. But you can follow these on Twitter at AthleticsLCP, and if you just find us on YouTube, LCISD on that YouTube channel, make sure you do subscribe to that. So every time one of these videos comes up, or one of these football games that you and I are trying to broadcast, or volleyball, whatever you've got, we'll be streaming that right there on that YouTube channel. And I'll just start right there, Tommy. How many years have you been doing this for the old Cooper Pirates?
Well, first season was 2010. So
Okay.
I'd have to do some math to see how many.
Right.
I get 13th, I think, is
Okay,
the 13th season,
okay.
somewhere around in there. But
And what take me back, like, did you always want to get into broadcasting? Is this just kind of something that you thought you wanted to do when you were in high school, or growing up, or anything? Or is this just kind of something that you just kind of like, man, this sounds like fun, let's give it a shot?
actually, never crossed my mind growing up. I've always been a football nerd. I've enjoyed, always.
We
been
all
football.
are. We all are at
Yes,
some level. Yeah, that's right.
So, but of course, I've got a different career during the day, and lived in Dalhart for a while, and they had their radio guy for the Dalhart Wolves was leaving, so I had applied for that to just go in and do it. I thought it'd be fun. At the time, I was coaching Pee Wee football, and they didn't let me do it. But the guy that they did have do it was on the school board. He had to be gone once a week or once a year for school board conventions, so I got to fill in for him. And that started everything, just filling in one game a year for 2 or 3 years.
And this is perfect timing, because you and I saw, I don't know, I don't want to overstate it, but a minor miracle last week. And I thought that's a perfect time, because I had so much fun up there in the booth with you, just kind of watching that play out. Take me through your recollection of last Friday night.
Oh my word! So, hard to imagine.
There was a lot of words. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Definitely to me felt like that the Cooper Pirates, that we had lost the game. I felt like several times coming into the end of the game, and I could see that there was a small glimmer of hope. But when Coronado decided to go for the win as opposed to having the Pirates use all their timeouts, I thought, hey, I respect the call of going for the win on the deal.
Being aggressive. Yeah.
But the way things panned out, that, left a little bit of a window open. Then, of course, could not believe that, run backwards on killing the clock. I thought, hey, with our kicker, with the Cub back there, that could make for a short field if something crazy happens. And I still thought, it obviously very unlikely that things would work out the way for the Pirates. But then getting the block punt and the short field, it was just phenomenal. But really getting to see the team's reaction, and since that time, getting to hear how much it meant to him, it's made it actually more fun, I think, after the fact, being able to see how it affected him and the team, than actually experiencing it for ourselves.
Yeah, and you and I were just kind of, I mean, at least I was. I'll speak for myself. I was kind of in shock, and couldn't believe it. I think I probably talked over you way too much, so I apologize for doing that. But I mean, I that's what you get with me, and
It was an exciting time.
I get, raw emotion in that stadium. I mean, right there is why we all have a love-hate relationship with sports, depending on what sideline you're on. It's just like the girlfriend that you just can't quit. She's not good for you at times, but just can't Can't quit. Sure, I'll go on another date with you. Because if you're on the Cornell sideline, you're like, I hate everything about this sport. But if you're on the Cooper sideline, it was awesome. But so many things had to happen perfectly to even get to that point. And that's what was fascinating. But you did a great job kind of laying that out there. And we talked about that. You had to execute that sideline pass right there just to get Cub in position. But it all leads me to, is there another game or memory that sticks out as maybe a favorite? Because I would be willing to bet you're going to file that one away for a long time and say never, because you saw a minor miracle. I feel like we could call football for the next 40 years and may never see anything like that. But is there another game that sticks out to you that crazy ending or just was a fun one for you?
I think, well, I'll go back to the very first Cooper game that I got to do as the Pirate guy.
Okay.
I had done a couple called a couple of Pirate games when I was doing it for Dalhart. But this stadium opened, Pirate Stadium opened in 2010. The very first game in that stadium was my first game to get to be the Pirates radio guy. And that game was against Idalou, and it went to, I think it was a double overtime game. A phenomenal time. Later on that same year, going to the playoffs, had a triple overtime game against Andrews in the playoffs. And this was all first year to do it. And, Coach Wyndham taking that team to the quarterfinals, which was a pretty phenomenal deal. So that definitely stands out. You and I talked about it on the Dumas game, how for the playoff game in 2017 when they had the flyover and with the crop duster, but the energy and the excitement in the stadium that night. That was a night that Jarrett Dagey broke some records for the team in passing.
And you're talking about the one in Dumas, yes.
In 2017, yeah. That was really, I think, a standout game. But there's also, I think about the 2013 breakout season when the team went to the quarterfinals after not making the playoffs the year before. And that was a phenomenal time because that was a year in the playoffs that, with the exception of the first round, the Pirates were underdogs in every single game and made it all the way to the quarterfinals. And that was a special time. And as I'm saying, I may be giving you more than what you want to hear.
This is why we're here.
I'll tell you another one that stood out to me is one that it doesn't even show as a game. When the Pirates wound up going into 5A, our second cycle of that, instead of having Idalou as our first game of the season, the Pirates scheduled Amarillo High as our first game of the season, which to me, I was thinking at the time, what is Coach Cat thinking? These guys, this is a completely different league. And we wind up, that game was called at halftime because of lightning, but the Pirates were ahead. And that was to me, that was kind of it was a bellwether game that basically was saying, hey, you know what? We belong with this group. And that one to me stands out, and which is crazy since the game officially never happened.
Yeah, it's not recorded. Yeah, as an actual contest. That's been the one thing I've noticed from afar too. Now that we're in the middle of it, but they've never been around here shy about trying to play the best in this part of the state. I mean, that the game against Stephenville many years ago that was aired nationally on TV, and you play Friendship every year, even though they're a bigger classification and all those things. Speak to the people that you get to work with. Like you mentioned, Coach Wyndham, and then Coach Catwinkle, and then now Chip Darden. I think that's as much of a draw about getting to call these games as anything. At least it is for me. It's just being around quality people and classy people.
Well, there's no question about it. It's a fantastic organization, but I think about the fact that so many folks wind up talking about how they want their organization to be family, that they want it to be around values. And this is something that, at least in the 13 years that I've been affiliated with the Pirates, that it is, I can tell you, it's not lip service. It is absolutely the way it is. And I really don't have affiliation with Cooper outside of getting to do these football games, but whether it's Coach Wyndham, whether it's Coach Cat, whether it's, Mr. Bryant, it's every single person goes out of their way to make me get to feel like I'm a part of things rather than just somebody who gets to spend their favorite 3 hours of the week getting to call a football game.
Favorite broadcaster growing up in any sport? And it doesn't have to be just one, but
I mean, Howard Cosell was
okay.
one that, of course, really stood out to me as a kid. Just because
You're taking it way back there.
he
but
was the
yeah,
iconic guy,
fair enough.
for us when we were small. But excuse me, I think when John Madden first came onto the scene as a broadcaster,
Boom. Yeah, him and Summerall. Yeah, I mean those are. I mean, I grew up that duo was about as good as you're ever going to find in anything. Yeah,
and it was different. I mean, he was to me, he was one of one of those first folks that really wound up being, you know, kind of breaking the mold of what people expected at that time.
Right. Have you ever seen a 50-yard field goal to win a game in high school though? Was that a new one for you?
I don't recall having one that won a game particularly on the last play of the game. But the Pirates have had some fantastic kickers over the years, and I'm oh, good night. Now his name is escaping me. Wound up going to Abilene Christian now just a few years ago, but he was somebody that while I don't recall him whether he made a 50-yarder while we were playing, he definitely had the range to be able to do it. And I think there are a lot of soccer players that come across and come onto the football side. So I have seen 50-yarders in high school before, but for the last play of the game to win a game and the pressure that's on there, particularly with a crowd of this size against a crosstown team, and the pressure that's got to be on there, it's certainly not an ending like that.
Yeah, and you had to have the hold right, snap right, everything like that. That was fun. Where did your love of sports, just in general, begin? And you mentioned football, nerd. Was this always you just like strictly a football guy? Did you love all sports? Do you love?
I grew up with two brothers, so
Okay.
everything was a competition, regardless of what it was that we were doing. And very early on, I actually was not a football fan when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and my youngest brother or my middle brother, I should say, was a huge Cowboys fan. He would when the Cowboys would lose, he would cry. I mean, it was a big.
We've been crying as a Cowboy fan for many years.
Yes.
Yeah, early '90s. Yeah,
and of course, this was back in the days of Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson and
Captain
and
America,
that whole
yeah.
group. But I was not into it the way he was, and so I believe it was it may have been Super Bowl 10 when I just thought, I tell you what, you keep on asking me who I want to win, and I don't really care. So whoever wins this game, they'll be my favorite team from now on. And the Steelers won. And so from that point forward, for the rest of our days as kids, we were very much enemies every time the Cowboys and the Steelers played. In fact, Super Bowl 13, I was banished to my parents' room. I had to watch it in their room while the rest of the family watched it in the living room.
So you were a contrarian. Yeah, you're like, I don't really care. That's funny. Yeah.
But then I really got into it, and from that day forward, there was no real turning back.
So you don't know this, but I just ironically enough, I bumped into your high school quarterback yesterday. Okay, just as luck would have it, and Tui Rankin is his name, and he says, I was, Tommy and I played high school football together. You played fullback at Midland Lee, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and y'all ran the wishbone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, take me through high school football memories, because that was the heyday of the era. I mean, especially of football in that time with kind of the Friday Night Lights realm and just everything going on, and Mojo, and then Midland. I mean, just all that stuff.
Oh, it was it's one of the reasons why I love doing broadcasting now for high school sports, is because of the, just the building the celebrity for the kids and helping them believe in themselves. Because I do believe that a lot of that period is a whole lot of what has made me who I am today. And, for a lot of the success that I've had just in those experiences that you get from sports, in believing in yourself. And when something goes wrong, you can't dwell on it. You got to go figure out what's going to happen next. So that it definitely shaped me a ton. But some of the cool things about it, my Coach Dykes was our high school coach up through my sophomore year anyway, and before he came up here to Tech. Tyrone Thurman was 1 year older than I was, so he was, and of course for the Rebels at that time, if you weren't a senior, you weren't on varsity. I mean, it was very, very rare for that to be the case. So as a
1985 for you, is that right?
85 team,
Okay.
so
Okay.
84 year as a JV player, our job, I mean, we ran scout team every day for one of the best defenses in the state. And for me, and I don't know how many JV or scout players are watching this, but I will say that year absolutely made my senior year because of what we were doing every day against one of the best. And for me, every practice was game day. Loved it, but it was,
I'm not
but
shocked that you would have that approach. Yeah.
but it's funny to me that I think those are some of the first things I think of rather than the games we had our senior years. But Coach Baxter, Terry Baxter, who's on the
Yeah.
staff here, was on that team. Danny Servance, who was the head coach for Estacado, was Permian's middle linebacker at that time. Rodney Sims, who until just recently was Estacado's offensive coordinator before he went to Level Land here a few years ago. He was running back, and Kurt Thurman, who coaches at Midland High now, but he coached at Estacado for a little while. He was another running back. So that entire backfield all wound up being here in Lubbock for a pretty good while after that. But those were pretty phenomenal times, and we had a national, well, it wasn't a national, but we had a live TV game against Permian that at that time was very
big
rare
deal. Yeah.
for this area, and because of it, and the team that won the bid to do it preempted an NLCS game in order to show that game. So the New York Times came down, Time Magazine came down, and it was that was one of the highlight, I guess, celebrity moments for that team. We lost 13-7. I don't carry it with me that it was my only fumble of the season, and they scored on the next drive.
I was about to
but,
say,
you know,
Tui did mention that your ball security needed work.
that was the only fumble of the year, but it was a big one.
He was, yeah.
I'm gonna. Okay, thanks. The rest of the day is going to be great now thinking about that.
Have you been surprised at how much this football program has grown? Because you mentioned, man, when I started out, we're 3A and we're just kind of getting our feet wet. Had a stadium that just opened up, and now it's kind of this logo and this helmet is kind of a staple in this part of the state. And you're used to winning games. You're used to going to double digit, or deep into the playoffs and things like that. Did you think that would be the case when you first started this, that this program was capable of this?
I got to tell you, it never really occurred to me at the time. I mean, from my perspective, I just knew I wanted to be doing
being around it.
play-by-play.
Okay.
And frankly, I went to, when I got here, because the 2009 season was my first year in Lubbock, and I went to every radio station in town that covered high school football trying to get them to let me call a game, and nobody had a clue who I was. And
Well, you kidding me? They don't know the great Tommy Wood?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that might be a common thing now too. But at any rate, it was as it turned out in 2010, the Pirates had been using, if I'm recalling correctly, an intern from Tech to do their games, and I don't know if he graduated or left or whatever, and my timing just happened to be right. So from my perspective, I was just happy to be getting in the door at that moment to be able to call games in the Lubbock area after having done it in Dalhart for a while. But no, it didn't occur to me. I think, and I don't even know that I ever thought of it in terms of really developing a program per se. I just
Because you were kind of on at the ground floor in many ways.
I mean,
When they really kind of started to emerge and kind of blow up. I mean, because it looks worlds different now than it did 10, 12 years ago.
oh, no question.
Yeah.
In fact, and I don't think about it very much, but to your point, I mean, the Pirates have been now in 7 quarterfinals in their school history, and 6 of them have been in that last 13 years. So I don't think I thought about it at the time, but because I think I do a pretty good job of enjoying the moment of where I am. But I can tell you this, I mean, I certainly have been able to see the leadership that not only Coach Wyndham, but also Coach Cat and everybody that surrounded him as that group started. there was no question that it was going to be a group that was going to go on to do great things.
Yeah, and Chip Darden now in charge, and obviously state semifinal last season, and you've
2 out of the last 3.
yeah, 2 out of the last 3. It's a great point. Any player? I know we love all of our children equally here, but any player that sticks out from all
Oh,
your
man.
years, just watching, enjoyed going to the stadium on a Friday night, enjoy watching them play.
Over the years, there are a ton of them. Early on, I remember Ryan Mosley, who's still playing professional baseball. He's, I think, doing AAA baseball right now, unless something has changed just recently. But knowing, hey, if it's 4th and 16, this is a sideline pattern to Ryan Mosley. I mean, he is going to be that go-to guy. And the Simnackers and the Savages and all the brothers that came through for the Savage family, Ethan Conley. There's a number of them. This actually is going to kind of go back, I guess, to some memorable games too. But I think about Kobe McKenzie as a freshman. He comes in as a freshman. First game of the season is in Andrews, and he winds up getting a late turnover and takes it into the end zone and made the difference in the Pirates being 0-1 and 1-0 in his first game as a varsity player. The next week against Coronado, Pirates were down in that game until very, very late in the game. He gets a very unlikely turnover, setting up the Pirates to score. If it wasn't the last play of the game, it was very, very close to it. So Kobe McKenzie as a freshman was the difference in the Pirates being 2-0 or 0-2. And that was the season that the Pirates, for the only time in history, went undefeated in their regular season year. So, that was a pretty phenomenal time too. But the list of players, I look at the record board that's in the field house and think, man, every time I see a name, it takes me back to. There's really too many to even to be able to pull off the top of my head at the moment.
Yeah, that's what's fun about getting to do what we do sometimes. Did you hate me whenever I was bringing up getting tattoos and everything in the booth? I kid you not. Have you been asked about that at all this week?
Only by my wife.
I was asked twice at the grocery store in the last 2 days by 2 different, totally random people. Hey man, where's your tattoo at? And I thought, boy, people are listening. People are listening. I'm like that was all Tommy's idea. Tommy's tried to twist my arm, and my wife wouldn't go for it. But
So for what it's worth, I went back and I listened to a recording of the game,
and you never committed to it.
But not only that, but you didn't say that we would get them if the Pirates won the game. You said it that we would get them if they won it in a specific way. I don't remember what it was. And that wasn't the way it happened. That was a drive or two earlier.
Fun stuff. Well, Tommy, you were nice to do this, man. I appreciate. I just wanted to let people get a glimpse of who you are, what you're about, and again, Edward Jones Investments. If you got any money you want to invest with this guy, but yeah, I think a lot of you. It's been fun working with you this year, so I hope to do many more games with you.
I do too, and I am. I will tell you, I have really enjoyed everybody I've gotten to do games with over the year. For me, it's a blessing to get to do it. But I will say, with the investment that the Pirates have made and what these productions have looked like this year. Colton and Coons and his team, the
guy
job
behind the camera right over there, yeah.
But people don't have. I don't think they have a clue of how much work goes into that from so many people who really never get any credit at all. That without any one of them, none of that winds up happening. So you and I are blessed because we get to be, I guess, the visual prima donnas out there, on the deal. But it is unbelievable how much work goes into that. And it's, like I say, it's not lip service. It is my favorite 3 hours of every week.
I know it is, man. Well, I appreciate you, Tommy.
Hey,
good job, man.
Thank you.
Sir.
I appreciate you. And I'm excited you're here.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. There he is. That's another edition of Pirate Talk. That's Tommy Wood. I'm Chris Level. Colton Coons behind the camera making this whole thing happen. Keep watching. Thank you very much.